Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this morning study for a new week in the morning studies. And we're going to continue not on Jephthah. We're going to continue our studies dealing with Ibzan, Elon, and the other guy, Abdon. But before we begin, can you join me in a word of prayer? Dear Father in heaven, we are so thankful, Lord, for each morning that we can come together. We know, Lord, that there are so many struggles that we face in this world of sin and suffering. And we lift up in prayer those that are struggling with the situations that are around them that seem to bring darkness to them. We just ask that your Holy Spirit can cut through that darkness, that your word can give us light, and that can give us hope, and that we can come to you and receive peace. We pray for this movement and the people in it. You know, Lord, how much we care for those that we know. And when we see them hurting in various ways, we know, Lord, that we cannot make decisions for them. We can only be an example and reflect your character. And we know that we're not always successful in that. So we pray for forgiveness and that you can still use us in spite of the fact, Lord, that there are many things we do not know or understand, and things in our character that still need to be refined, and things deep in us that we have not forsaken. Help us to trust in you. Be with us now through your Spirit as we study together, is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, good morning, everyone, again. So we started on Thursday. Well, I believe it was on Thursday. We started putting Ibzan, Elon, and Abdon up. Seems like a long time ago. I think actually we started the day before on Wednesday. I think we started putting things there on Wednesday, if I remember, but I could be wrong. What we did find, and we're going to look at the scriptures again here, but we found just putting that first message, Ibzan, up there, that we ended up with this 300 days. And of course, that's just something that exists in our history from December 6, 2020 to October 2nd, 2021. And this would relate to how we refine this period of darkness. And before the study, Ron was sharing with me how he was understanding how we put these lines together, and that he shared with others about this. And I think, one of the things we saw on Thursday is that we can easily construct these lines, that these things are not a mystery to us anymore, on how these lines work and their interconnection with other lines. So the simple way that we would look at it is what we've done in Judges, is we were studying the lines. We're trying to understand them. And we had gone through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Joseph. And we could see how these lines, that when you zoomed into a waymark, you could create a new line. And then we went through, of course, we skipped over quite a bit when it came to the Exodus. There's lots of things that we didn't look at. But when we got to the book of Joshua, we started to spend a lot more time to carefully analyze the chapters. But when we got to the book of Judges and Judges chapter 2, we actually had an insight that really aided us in looking at the book of Judges that we hadn't really applied previously. And I think part of it is because the book of Judges illustrates very closely the present experience that this movement has. And that was seen by understanding that Judges chapter 2, verse 1 to 23 represents 2001 to 2023. And then as we kept going through the Judges, we had come to a conclusion that these Judges represent a line, what we call the line of the Judges, or the Judges line. And that Judges line contains all the waymarks of a reform line, and each of the judges represents one of those waymarks. Though sometimes there's 3 judges together that represent a waymark, or Deborah Barak represent a waymark. Tola and Jair represent a waymark. And now we're looking at Ibzan, Elon, and Abdon. They represent this waymark of December 25th, 2021. And we spent a lot of time with Jephthah, which was very, very enlightening, because we had looked at Jephthah before, but now we're putting them on these lines. And one of the things that we do in constructing a line is we recognize that a line is a reform line, and that a reform line is in response to darkness. Because what a reform line is doing is giving light through this process, a 3-step testing prophetic message process, to develop and demonstrate 2 classes of worshipers. But it's also always addressing darkness. And each of those waymarks represents an increase of light. We always put it at the beginning. The first angel arrives and we have an increase of light. But an increase of light happens all along the waymark, or all along the line with each waymark. And that darkness never completely disappears until you get to the 3rd waymark, that the issue that's addressed at the beginning isn't fully resolved until the end. But of course, there's lots of darkness that we are in. Every waymark or every reform line only addresses a particular darkness. Now, of course, all of these reform lines put together, at the end of the world, we can see how we are called out of this darkness into this marvelous light. And this light at the end of the world is the glory and character of Christ. So in a sense, all of these darknesses represent the departure from a knowledge of God. So all of these reform lines are revealing God's character, because Christ is the true light that lighteth every man that cometh into the world. And when it comes to this particular reform line, and we look at it on the judges line, we see that it comes after December 6, 2020. And December 6, 2020, we know is a rejection of the symbolic use of dates. So it's very particular. And so when we looked at Jephthah, here we had a reform line by looking at that waymark that really illustrated the significance of the symbolic use of dates and numbers and spans and time. But now we're on the December 25th, 2021 waymark, which is the empowerment of the second angel's message. December 6th was a formalization of that message that arrived on July 18th. That message that arrived on July 18th, of course, related to our disappointment with the failure of the July 18, 2020 prediction. But that wasn't the end of our line, because we had all of this light that was leading us to December 25th, 2021. So we know we had 525 days leading from July 18, 2020 to December 25th, 2021. And so, now we look at December 25th, 2021 as a reform line. So Ibzan, Elon, and Abdon are relating to that end of the 777 structure. So it's the empowerment of that message, the second angel's message, which had to relate to our disappointment. So when we got there, we had a number of things happen. So Stephen had recognized the 777 years from 457 BC to 321 AD, something we should have obviously noticed, but we didn't. It was in God's providence that it was noticed on that date. Colin presented light that he had regarding Daniel 3, Daniel 11, verse 1 to 4, and Revelation 17. And I actually was yesterday going over some of the studies, and you'll see why, dealing with the presidents of the United States. But that was in response to what Colin presented there. But remember, on December 6, 2020, we also had the issue of the presidents of the United States that we were studying prior to that, December 6, 2020, we were supposed to continue that study, but instead the FFA shut down the studies and they issued a declaration. And so it's interesting when you look at the line of the judges that the empowerment of that is this presentations of Collins. So one is the thing that we have to recognize is that Collins' presentation, what he presented was light from God. Just because it's not fully understood, its implications aren't fully understood, doesn't mean that it wasn't light. Now, of course, his study leads to January 11th, 2023, even though in the study that he did last Sabbath, when I missed, which I've been watching, there's this comment, and I think it's Steve Welk making it, saying that, we can't put a date at the last, at the end of your line, right? The date is January 11th, and there's a resistance on the part of some to logically follow what Collins' study is saying, that if you're going to have this study that's based upon time, there's no way that you can just ignore the 46 and the 19 at the end of that study and say, well, that's just going to now not be time, right? And hopefully people understand what I'm talking about with Collins' study. So we show that 65 days from the election, November 8th, 2022, that brings us to January 11th, 2023, to the end of that date. And that becomes extremely important because it connects to the structures that God had already given unto us earlier, particularly April 5th, 2030, right? So that's going to be 2,640 days, 88 prophetic months from that January 11th date to April 5th, 2030. And, so when we look at this line, the one thing that we haven't been doing with these lines is putting the 8th, right? We put the 7 waymarks, but we know that there's always this 8th waymark. And, I'm just going to put this here. So we're going to put the 4th angel. We're going to put this as the 8th. And of course, that's not going to be Samson, but we don't know what that's going to be. Well, let's put this out over here. Well, maybe I'll put this up here, put the date in there, because this date is April 5th. Oops. And this April 5th, 2030 date becomes extremely important because it ties so many things together. And this is, for me, the sad part about the other people in the movement who aren't looking at this. I mean, this is huge light that God has given us because it helps explain so many things about 9/11 and 11/9 and Millerite history's connection to our history. And it brings us to this date in the future. And again, whether that's actually referring to some event or just symbolically, we don't know. But what we do know is we can't ignore it. And I was going over the study, and we're gonna come to that a little bit. We'll look at this. But it was a study that we did on the presidents of the United States. I believe it was number 17. And study number 17 was entitled number 8. And it's significant, as you will see here when we get into this line below. So we're just going to go back to the scriptures here and look at these passages. And remember, you guys all know that you can just comment anytime and ask questions. But hopefully that sort of preamble kind of gets us back on track from where we were Thursday.
That was quite enlightening the way you went through that. I'm going to go back to when I get the transcripts and use that.
Okay. So we dealt with Ibzan, and what we did is we looked at the symbol, especially the 30 sons, 30 daughters, and the 30 daughters-in-law, right? And and also the symbol of 7 years. And that's one of the things we have here in this line is we have the 7, 10, 8, which gives us July 18. So this line is still about July 18, which is the empowerment of July 18. And then we had Elon. So Elon is this second way mark. And Elon is a Zebulonite. So he judges Israel 10 years. And what would be the significance? Because we haven't really addressed this in the last couple of days, but the 10 years, what was the 10 years about? Does anybody remember?
I'm sorry, Theodore. I don't have my notes now. My wife is using the computer.
Okay. Okay. So think about 10 years. What is 10?
Well, off the top of my head, we've got quite a few, but the one that sticks out the most is the 10 of it. You know, the symbol for globalism or the world.
Okay. So a symbol for the world. So
The 10 kings, it's the symbolism of 10 kings, also the symbolism of the 10 tribes of Israel.
Yeah. So the 10 tribes. So it represents sometimes a universal, right? So it can be universal. Now, so one of the things about the message of July 18 is that this message, of course, did get international attention. I mean, obviously it wasn't headline news, but it definitely made a splash in the media, at least for some people, especially people who like to criticize Christians. Now we had Isaiah 6 verse 13 is Angela posted, and that is
it's to do with the tenth.
yeah,
So
yeah,
the remnant.
yeah, the remnant, right? And yet it shall be a tenth. So
Also, it got the 10 spies that came back and gave an evil report,
yeah,
which is sin.
the 10 spies it can refer to.
Yeah.
A tenth, which is a tithe, which is a remnant. And it says here, and yet it shall be a tenth, and it shall return. That's the word shuv. And it shall be eaten as a teal tree. Now, which would be like an elm, an oak. So when it comes to nomenclature in the Bible, it's often hard to tell exactly what an item is referring to because those things change over time. But you know, it's probably some kind of deciduous tree. And then because it says a teal tree and as an oak, right? So that's just one's Ella and one's Elon. So they kind of look like similar words. Whose substance is in them. So it's something stationary that is a monumental stone, also a stalk of a tree, a pillar. So it's really referring to a pillar is in them when they cast their leaves, so the holy seed shall be the substance thereof. And so when I think about the 10th, when I think about the remnant, and I think about this line that we have here, the 10 years, this is this message when we get to December 25th, 2021, there is a well, I guess a remnant is a way to look at it. But, you know, one of the things we had with this first message was this 300, right? So the 300 is this thing that's whittled down, right? In the story of Gideon, right?
Yes.
But we also have in this line 30, right? Because of the symbolism of Ibzan. There's 3 30s there, which we know can represent 3 months. So one of the things that we saw with our connection to April 5th, 2030, is that we could take those months. The way that we did it, we had take the months and turn them into days, and then we turned the days into years, which can seem on the surface just kind of odd, but there's a reason why, because of the story of Ezra. And also dealing with not just the story of Ezra, but we have something similar when we have the 70th week, in that we get a day for a year in a peculiar way. So when we look at this December 25th, 2021 date, we know that that's the 20th day of the 9th month, right? So that's going to be starting this divorcement. Well, they're not going to start the divorcement, but they're going to plan to have this divorcement. And when we know that a remnant has returned to Judah, right? And when we look at the prophecy, so I'm kind of trying to bring all these threads together here. But when we look at Daniel chapter 9, and we look at the 3 decrees, and we look at all of the things prophesied about the end of the 70 years and the periods in Leviticus 26, that it's a remnant that returns. And so I take this 10 years as representing a remnant. But that's because it can represent other things, but I'm not going to say it represents 10 nations or, or the universal, kingdoms or anything like that. Here in this context, I think it has to refer to a remnant.
It calls it a tenth, right?
Well, that's in Isaiah, it's a 10th. Yeah. Here in the story of Elon, it just says he judged 10 years.
Oh, okay.
Right. But I'm just saying that that's the symbol that I'm going to use with the 10, is it being a 10th, a remnant. Okay. And then. Okay. So we can see how that remnant is going to relate to the story of Ezra. And then the December 25th, 2022 date, we see is the first day of the 10th month in the biblical calendar, right? So we can see how this second message is tying to this third. Now, of course, we put that date there because we're connecting these different Decembers. December 6th, which is the 20th day of the 9th month in 2020, December 25th, which is the 20th day of the 9th month in 2021, and December 25th, which is the first day of the 10th month in 2022. And we know that that's going to relate to the January 11th date. That's going to be the next waymark in the line of the judges with the line of Samson. And so we can see how that connects. So in this line, it's going to have that first day of the 10th month. And we can relate that to the prophetic months, right? So we can take, prophetic months or lunar months. And there's different ways that we connected these dates together. And so that's why this waymark, this January 11th, 2023 waymark, the December 25th, 2021 waymark, leads to this January 11th, 2023 waymark. So this waymark here, which is the empowerment of the second angel, we know that the empowerment of the second angel leads to the arrival of the third, right? Millerite history, the midnight cry, behold, the bridegroom cometh on the 10th day of the 7th month. right? It's the
Agreed.
7-month movement. So in this line of the judges, when we have this December 25th, 2021 waymark, it's the waymark there, but it doesn't mean that waymark just addresses only that date. Every time we zoom into a waymark, these other lines are all being connected by the reform line that is produced by that waymark. And so that's why we can say, even though this line itself isn't going to put January 11th, 2023 in it, it's just going from December 6th, 2020 to December 25th, 2022. It's still addressing a message that can be connected to January 11th, 2023, because January 11th, 2023 is the first day of the 10th month. If we use that structure from 9/11/2001 to April 5th, 2030, right? In two different ways that we connect 2030 to September 11th, 2001. So I know not everybody's going to remember all the details of that, but we got that from the story of Ezra. So January 11th, 2023 is as much the first day of the 10th month, even though it's not literally so, as December 25th, 2022. They're really the same waymark. Okay. So hopefully that's well understood. Just looking at something here. Okay. Now, there was another thought, but I gotta come back to that at some
Can
point.
you repeat that other thought you just,
About December 25th, 2022 being the first day of the 10th month, and January
Right.
2023 also being just as much the first day of the 10th month, though symbolically so, right? Even though, that is, we're not saying it's because of the number date January 11th, but because it's 2,640 days to April 5th, 2030.
Okay.
Right? So being that number of days, it's 88 prophetic months. And that 88 prophetic months comes from the 88 days from the first day of the 10th month to the first day of the first month in the story of Ezra. So January 11th, 2023 is the first day of the first month because it's 88 lunar months, and we're doing a day for a month in the story of Ezra. And so that brings us to April 5th, 2030, right? Because that's going to be exactly 88 months from January 11th, 2023 to April 5th, 2030. Prophetic months. I don't know if I said lunar months, prophetic months. So it's 88 times 30, which is 2640, 2,640 days. It's a symbol of the 26th day of the fourth month, which we had as our July 18th date in the biblical calendar, lining up with July 18, 2020 on the Gregorian. So, so the point here is that when we're looking at this line, Ibzan, Elon, and Abdon, we have these three, but these three are 7, 10, and 8, which is July 18. Because in the way that the Bible would do it, you would say, 10 years and 8, right? There's not a number particularly for 18. You have to say 10 and 8. So we have 10 and 8, that's 18, and we have 7 at the beginning. The person could say it's 25, if you added that all together, but You wouldn't say 7 and 10 and 8. You would say 10 and 8 to get 18, and you get 7 for 7 years. So we can see that the way that it's set up here is that this is a symbol of July 18th. And then we took Ibzan's gematria in English is 52 and Abdon's is 36. And we multiplied the two, 52 times 36, and we get 1872. So it's kind of interesting there. And then we have Elon, who's 10 years, and 46 is his number, his gematria. So he's got 10 years and 46. So we don't have a lot to go on with Elon. So we're going to go back there. And what we see with Elon is simply that we're going to have his name, where he's from. We don't even have his father's name. We just know he's from the tribe of Zebulun. We know how long he judged Israel. We know he's going to die. And then he's going to be buried in Ajalon in the country of Zebulun. And I thought it was kind of interesting because Elon, his name, is the Hebrew number 356, and Ajalon is the number 357. But they're not directly related words, which I found kind of interesting. So it's kind of interesting that where he's buried is just in the Hebrew Strong's Concordance, Dick Strong's dictionary. It's only going to be one Hebrew number apart. I don't know what that means particularly, but just thought that was interesting. And of course, being a Zebulonite is mentioned twice, right? It's mentioned in 12 and 11 and 12:12. And the country of Zebulun, right? So as you can see, they're the same Hebrew number, 2075. Now, what I looked at, so I spent a bit of time on this yesterday trying to understand what this symbol of Zebulun would be referring to. So I'll just show you what I went through in understanding this. I just looked up Zebulun here on my chart. And of course, we have this May 23rd, 1863 to July 18, 2020 symbol. So that's Odilio's study on the tokens, harbingers, and signs. And May 23rd, 1863 is going to be this span of time to July 18th is the number of the tribe of Zebulun, 57,400 days. Now, so we did similar things with Naphtali and other tribes, Reuben, the 46,500 days from the last day of the General Conference in 1888, because he's going from the last day of the General Conference in 1863. They're 25 years apart. So we can get that 25 in connection with the line of Ibzan, Elon, and Abdon, because of the length of time they reigned is 25 years. So that gives us some symbol that connects us with that period of time from 1863 to 1888, right? 25 years becomes significant in that sense. And so I looked at this and I thought about it a little bit, what that would mean. I tried to look at different representations of this number. So I thought, what if I took 1/10 of it? So 5740, you know, how much time that is divided by 365.25. I'm going to get 15 years, right? And I think it was 159 days or something like that. 261 and a quarter days. And I was doing a bunch of other calculations. So these are some of the things that I would do. It's almost 9 months. so I try to say, how does Zebulun relate to this history, right? That's the thing that I was trying to understand. How can we relate Zebulun? Now, what is the nature of Zebulun, by the way? What is Zebulun in the blessings that Jacob gives his son? What is the issue of Zebulun? What is Zebulun first?
Says he'll be a haven for ships, and his borders shall be onto Zidon.
Okay, so yeah, so that's in Genesis chapter 49.
49:13.
Yeah. Okay, so Zebulun should dwell at the haven of the sea. And that word's an interesting word. It's Kof, sheltered bay, haven ashore. Sea, of course, is Mim or Yam, pardon me. Yam, so that's the sea. And he shall be a haven for ships. So he's a haven of the sea, a haven for ships, of ships. And his border shall be unto Zidon, right? So Zidon is one of these seacoast cities of, well, generally speaking, you're going to see the Philistines there. Now, Zebulun himself means exalted, right? But it comes from a word to enclose, that is to reside. So it's kind of strange that that's the meaning of the name. Just because it comes from the root, the significance of the root isn't always the meaning of the name directly.
Can you
And
repeat what that means?
the exalted for Zebulun.
The other one. that
Oh,
you
the
just-
root. The root is just to dwell with, right? To properly to enclose. So it's kind of hard to say, how does to enclose relate to being exalted?
Well, I don't know, but it kind of relates to the description of, where he's going to be, the enclosed port area for ships, like a cove
Yeah,
for ships.
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it relates to his name as far as the root of the name, but it doesn't relate to the name exalted that I can see. But he's going to be an enclosure, a haven of ships, right? And of course, when Jacob is blessing his sons, I mean, he's speaking prophetically, and a lot of this wouldn't be realized until later, what he meant in these blessings. But anyway, so we have Zebulun, and we had this application of Zebulun's numbering of the tribe that was done by Odilio, right? Now, there's two numberings of the tribes, right? You have the initial numbering in Numbers 1 and 2, and then in Numbers 26, they're numbered again. Zebulun's going to increase by 3,100, right? So he's going to end up with 60,500. So he's going to increase from 157 years, 55 and 0.7 days to whatever it ends up being, whatever this is, 165. So he increases by about 8 years. 8 in almost 9 years. 8 and a bit. Anyway, and that would be that 3,100 days, which is 8 years and something. I know this could be a little bit boring, all this math stuff. So almost 8.5 years. specifically 8 years and 178 days is what Zebulun increases from Numbers chapter 2 to Numbers 26. So I looked at these types of things dealing with Zebulun. I tried to say, okay, how does this relate? How does all of this about Zebulun relate to this date of December 25th, 2021, and to the dates that follow, right? So we know that this is Elon, right? So he's the second angel's message. He's a Zebulunite. What does that mean in the context of this line? So that would be, part of it. And any thoughts on that, on how we could look at that? If you counted from the day that we began to study. So on December 25th, 2021, Colin's going to do his presentation. And then we're going to begin the study of understanding the lines on the 26th, right? So the next day, we do an understanding the lines. And if you count from the next day, it'll bring you to June 22nd, 2030. It's the 20th day of the third month on the biblical calendar. It's 1310, the last two digits on the Mayan calendar.
So is it significant that the 2030 shows up again with the January or June 22nd? Was it 6/22? Is that what that was?
Yeah, 6/22. So in 2030. Yeah. So if you count 3,100 days from the day that we begun this study of understanding the lines, which we began on the Sunday, right? After December 25th, we have the Sunday, right? That's the next day. In the morning study, we're going to begin this study of understanding the lines. And if we count from that date, it'll bring us to June 22nd, 2030.
Is it inappropriate right now to count those days between the April 5th, 2030 and the 6/22?
Well, you can. So
No, I can't. I don't have my computer.
yeah, well, if we do, it'll be 78 days. So whatever that means. But this is what we do. We look at these numbers and we try to say, how does this relate? How can we take these symbols and relate them? Right. Now, we have then, so we're going to have a formalization and an empowerment. Now, part of it there's different ways we could look at this. So we know it's December 25th, 2021, right? And how do we know that that's the date that we're going to use for Elon? What's the reason that we give for putting Elon there on December 25th, 2021, the 20th day of the 9th month? Because I put him there. It is definitely a lot clearer with the December 6th, but part of it has to do with the lines that were created. So we're saying that Elon is the center waymark of this empowerment of the second angel's message in the line of the judges. But we use the December 25th, 2021 date as the arrival of a message. And part of it was just how we took December 6th as the starting, because we're trying to understand what this darkness is and what this line would be addressing. And since this is the empowerment of a message that this waymark is, and we already had confirmed December 6, 2020 structure, do we have to then create this line the way that we've done it? Or is this just us following down a path, just assuming? I mean, we have some pretty interesting things in putting these dates here, the 300 days divided by 80 and 220, dealing with the response of the declaration, which is this February 24th, 2021 date, the publication of understanding the history of December 4th to 6th. And remember, that's going to be coming from the story of Ezra and Nehemiah that I explained those 3 days. Right. And then the October 2nd date is simply the empowerment of that when basically I'm kicked out of the American group, but they wouldn't look at it that way maybe. But it's definitely being punished for my reaction to Mark Johnson's study on transhumanism. So me rejecting that conspiracy theory about that you can become transhuman by taking the vaccine, which is not what anybody's ever claimed. So we have that. So now we got Elon. So we don't have a lot to go on. We just have the symbol of his name, the 10 years. We have that he's a Zebulonite, and we can tie him to the June 22nd, 2030 date by taking that span of difference between the two countings of the tribe of Zebulun, 3,100 years, 3,100 days, I mean, or years, taken from the numbering, right? So 3,100 days is 8 years and 178 days, right, on the Gregorian calendar. And that brings us to June 22nd, 2030, if we just counted from that date.
Inclusive or cardinal?
It's just, well, we're actually counting it exclusively. That is, we're technically counting from December 26th. So it would be counting from the end of December 25th to the beginning of June 22nd. But we start the study of the understanding of the lines is connected with this December 25th, 2021 date. So yeah, if you just did a cardinal count, you'd have to start on the 26th to get to June 22nd.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for getting me to clarify that. Now we have the symbol of 46. Now what's the symbol of 46 in Elon's gematria? What would that, how would that apply to December 25th, 2021?
I'm thinking when you said 46, I'm thinking 45.
But well, 46 would bring us to October 22, 1844, which Jeff marks as the Sunday law. We also mark December 25th, 2021 as the Sunday law. Right?
Yes.
Okay. So that would help us place that on December 25th, 2021. The 10 years gives us that this is the idea of a remnant, right? A 10th. But now we have to come up with a formalization. So we can just say, well, we have December 25th and we have a formalization of a message. Now in some of our lines, we would put Odilio study, as connected to December 25th, 2021, Collins and Odilio study, but this isn't really addressing that part of it, right? Because this is I mean, we could say, because this is all about the symbolic use of dates, at least the first part is, and this is about time. So the period of darkness that's being addressed has to do with what is empowered, which is the symbolic use of dates on December 25th, 2021. And so we could argue, well, Odilio provides some of that in his study, right? And that's particularly going to be the study of the mandates, right? So the spans of time there, how they relate to our lines. And we're going to get there, the number 1629, right? Right, so that number 1629 was this number that was what was 1629 about?
It had to do with the falling of the manna,
The 1629?
didn't it?
No, no, it never had to do with the
Oh,
fall.
that's okay. I got it mixed up.
Okay, it can be combined with other symbols. And so, you know, so if we possibly could put that as the formalization. 46 is a foundation of the human body and the temple. John 2, verse 19 and 20, understanding the lines. Okay, so, right, because if you add 391 to 1629, you get 2020. Can't remember the other. If you add 187, you get 1816. That's going to be September 11th, 1816, Miller's conversion. I can't remember the other things that Odilio did with 1629, but he did look at chapters, right? So if we go here, so he looked at chapters and he looked at, was it Leviticus 1629? I can't remember which ones he looked at. I know I looked at another one, which it was Exodus 1629. And he was trying to connect this to the mandates. See, for the Lord hath given you a Sabbath, therefore he giveth you on the 6th day the bread of 2 days. Abide ye every man in his place, let no man go out of his place on the 7th day. Okay, so you're correct, Angela, that there is this application here to the manna, right? So the people rested on.
That's a relief.
But I think that was indirectly that you got this, unless you were thinking this. And
Well, when I heard that, I just flashed back to that and I thought, is it the number of weeks? I thought, no, it's the chapter number.
okay, right. So the house of Israel called the name thereof manna, and it was like coriander seed white. The taste of it was like wafers made with honey. So this becomes an important point because we have this this understanding of this manna, which this is going to lead us to counting the number of days that the manna fell. So it's going to be 2,084 weeks, 14,588 days, the cardinal count from when it first falls to when they last go to gather in it, and there is none. So both of those are going to be Sundays. If we count the actual time that the manna fell, from the first day that it fell to the last day it fell, that's going to be 14,587. So that's 1440 plus 187 days. So you get that 10th. So there's something here about that 1629, which I think is something we still haven't grappled with. We haven't spent a lot of time looking at it. But we see it here, it's connected to the manna. Now, he also did primarily Numbers 1629. So Numbers 1629 was, and if these men die the common death of all men, or if they be visited after the visitation of all men, then the Lord hath not sent me. Now, this I didn't quite understand why he could see the significance of this in related to the mandates. I mean, I understand sort of the reasoning, but if you read in the context here, I mean, this is going to be about Korah, Dathan, and Abiram, right? So the Lord spake unto Moses, 16:23, saying, speak unto the congregation, saying, get you up from about the tabernacle of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. And Moses rose up and went unto Dathan and Abiram. The elders of Israel followed him. And he spake unto the congregation, saying, depart, I pray you, from the tents of these wicked men, and touch nothing of theirs, lest ye be consumed in all their sins. So they gat up from the tabernacle of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram on every side. And Dathan and Abiram came out and stood on the door of their tents, and their wives, and their sons, and their little children. And Moses said, hereby ye shall know that the Lord hath sent me to do all these works, for I have not done them of mine own mind. So hereby ye shall know that the Lord has sent me to do all these works. So this is a confirmation that Moses has been led by God. And so it says, if these men die the common death of all men, or if they be visited after the visitation of all men, then the Lord has not sent me. But if the Lord make a new thing, and the earth open her mouth and swallow them up, and with all that appertain unto them, and they go down quick, or living, or alive, into the pit, then ye shall understand that these men have provoked the Lord. And it came to pass, as he made an end of speaking all these words, that the ground clave asunder that was under them, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed them up, and their houses, and all the men that appertained unto Korah, and all their goods. They and all that appertained to them went down alive into the pit, and the earth closed upon them, and they perished from among the congregation. Right? So when we deal with this, I mean, his loose association here doesn't really speak to me in the way that he's trying to apply this. So one is we have the Exodus 1 dealing with the manna, right? So when they go to gather the manna, and that's interesting because this is addressing the Sabbath, right? That you're going to have a double portion on the 6th day because of the Sabbath. But the other one that to me is also significant is Leviticus 16:29. So this is going to be addressing the Day of Atonement, right? So the 10th day of the 7th month. I mean, that's pretty significant to me to take 1629. Take this. Yeah, we're taking the symbol of. Yeah, Ron's bird there.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So 1629. So we have this symbol here in these three books, Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers. And I think we have to put these all together.
So this is another 3. I just keep seeing these 3s pop up, what we're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, so this is really about God's judgments. The book, the Day of Atonement, the fact that he's going to provide this manna, right? And of course, if somebody goes out to gather the manna, then they're disregarding the Sabbath. So we have the Sabbath, we have the Day of Atonement, and we have God's judgment against Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. And
The three.
yeah. And so when we go back to this chart where we have placed, this line that we're constructing, I mean, we can say that this 1629 symbol then must apply here somewhere. Now, I think there's just a simple way to look at this. So I'm going to put a date here. So we get introduced to the symbol 1629 on, it's what, February 12th, 2022. I think that's the date. Odilia study. It's going to be 49 days after December 25th, 2021. So it's easy just to see. Yes, it's February 12th, 2022. And so we're going to get this symbol of 1629. So when is that empowered?
And we're talking about the December 25th, second angels. When was that empowered? That's what you're asking.
Yeah, well, yeah, because you got the message arrives, and then it's going to be formalized with Odilio's study, which brings us the 1629 symbol, right?
Yes.
And then we apply that 1629 symbol in relationship to November 24th, 2022.
Explain, please.
That's the Thanksgiving date, right?
Okay, yes.
Okay, and that date
I remember.
is from June 9th, 2018, when we get time introduced into this movement, right? As far as time setting. That's going to be 518 days before November 9th, 2019. That's 1,629 days to November 24th, 2022. Right? So we had this symbol there. It's 1,111 days after November 9th, 2019. And it's 1,859 days, which is in base 8 is 1,533 days after July 18. So it's 859 days, which as a symbol can be 1,533. Right. So this was the study that we did regarding November 24th. We also have to November 24th, the 1,629 weeks from the misdated New World Order speech by Bush. This one actually is going to be given on a different date, September 23rd, 1991. That's where he gives the speech to the 46th session of the United Nations General Assembly. People get confused between that date and another date. So it's not on September 11th, 1991, but it's on September 23rd, 1991. But it's misdated, right? So we have this misdated date. It's just another drawing of the same chart with a little bit different details in it. So this one's going to address 11,900 days from April 26, 1990. And it's going to address, this chart also is going to address the days that the manna falls. It's going to bring us to April 5th, 2030. And then we also had this 2688 number, right? So that's an application for the additional additional extension of time to file some documents for American taxes, right?
Yeah, it was a form number. It
Yeah,
turned out to
the
be
form
the
number.
extension, form number of the extension date.
Yeah, yeah, the form is to apply for additional extension of time,
Right.
right? And so we found lots of things in connection with that number. So, so when I look at this, if I'm going to understand this, I'm going to just put this symbol here. As a symbol. So that's a symbol that we get on November 24th, 2022. This 2688. We're going to have that connected. So we got these two symbols, the 1629 and the 2688. Now, again, you could see we can take this April 5th, 2030 date, and we can tie it to the end of this because of the symbols in connection with this line. Right, so we can put this here. As this 8th waymark, because this line is witnessing to that through these different symbols. Now we're saying that this is attached to the message of Elon, and we don't have these numbers in that story, but it's just the fact that we can place December 25th, 2021 as Elon, and then we can say that this February 12th date introduces this symbol that can lead us to this November 24th, 2022 date. And that's going to happen before this December 25th, 2022 date. Now, how many days is it from November 24th? Let me see here. To December 25th, that's going to be 32 days, right? No, 31 days. So you're going to have 31 days between those two dates. And so we got 31 there, just trying to figure out. And this, there was something else. I can't remember what it is. Okay, so we're going to leave Elon there. So whether people are happy with this or not, but I just see this as a natural extension of Colin and Odilio's study. Because connected with this November 24th date, had to, what it related to was this here. I'm just going to go back here. So I don't end up putting Colin's study in here. So, but in Colin's study, he's going to have this. He doesn't put it in there, but it's there, and that is going to be the December 25th, 2022 date. So, in Colin's election prediction. So what was he predicting?
Well, after talking with him yesterday about this, I'm still kind of unaware because he doesn't think he was saying what we had thought before. That's what he kept saying.
Well,
Uh,
I don't
He
know.
was challenging our understanding.
So what did he say that we're saying that he wasn't saying?
Well, we were saying that, that, let's see, if I seem to recall bad at this stuff. William, can you help me? You were there. What were we discussing on that when that subject popped up? He was saying that we were saying something about it. No, I can't remember, bro. I'm gonna have to go back and look at listen
So
to the
it was
transcripts.
the red wave takeover over of the Senate to put in Trump as the
Yeah,
speaker.
that was it. That's what I said. That's basically what we said was the
Yeah, but he
he
said
was-
he didn't say that. He said
that's what he was saying.
he said he was making a he how did he have it?
Speculation.
Well, I don't know about speculation, but he said that that everybody put that in his mouth that he said that Trump was going to get in before 2024, and he didn't say that.
Well, he told me
That's what he was telling me.
he did though, because he plainly told me that even recently when I went to visit him, that Trump's going to be put in prior to 2024, and he's not.
That's what
gonna be
I
put
had.
in
My
the
memory
election.
said.
What's that?
And
That was what my memory was. Is that's what
Yeah.
that's
Well,
what
anyway,
I kept sticking on.
I didn't mean to get into all that
No, no, no,
yesterday.
no,
I
no,
was
no. Dude, this is what we're talking about because
well, I wasn't trying to get into all that yesterday. I was trying to talk to him about the maze he made on them charts.
yeah, well, it doesn't matter. Anyway, we don't need to go on that. So the main thing is
But
when
the
All right,
subject did
well,
come up.
yeah. So the point is November 8th, he had this midterm election was going to be it would because he plainly said that it had to be um a complete victory for the Republicans, right? That they had to come in. He tied it to the idea of a Paneum, right? So January 6th was Raffia, and then we have to have the Republicans come back and win. However, he wants to characterize it. I don't know, but that was pretty clear in his studies that that's what he was saying. Whether he was just saying that that was a suggestion that might happen, it seemed pretty sure to me that it had to happen, right? From his studies, what he was saying from his studies. And of course, that didn't happen. But that's not the main point that I'm trying to say here is he had this midterm election November 8th date. And then he's going to take the 46 and the 19 represent Biden and Trump, but not actual days, right? So he doesn't put January 11th there. But notice here, I count the 46 days to the 24th. Now, Colin doesn't really do this, but he marks the 25th. Does anybody know why he marked December 25th in 2022 in his studies?
Not to my recollection.
So he's
that's the reason. That's the reason I was asking about his charts. I was wanting to find out where the all these dates that he had up there and the time periods and the spans and where he was getting them from, but I never did get no answer. But for one, I think it was for Ron can help me remember. It's about the 42 and the 210 and all these other numbers that he had on that.
well, I understand his charts. And I don't have problems with the charts per se, except that because I think the dates are valid and the spans are valid. But what he doesn't have is a structure to interpret it. Right.
Well,
Right.
he
And
also,
that's
I
kind of what
think
I
he,
was going at.
Yeah,
I think he split one line and put another line in the place of that line.
yeah,
He split it in half.
okay,
I think, you know, you noticed that October 20 date that he had,
yeah,
I think he split it right there in the middle of that 20, October 20 date. Because, he had the beginning and the end on the, he had, in the beginning, he had 363. And then at the end, he had, I think, what was it?
yeah. Anyway, it doesn't matter, right? So
Yeah,
'cause
well,
that's not
yeah,
what
it
I
might
want. I
not
don't
matter
want
to
to go
you,
into
but
the
it matters to
details.
me.
I don't want to go into the details of it. I want to go into the general understanding of it. So what he's going to do is he's going to use the prophetic mirror, right?
Yes, he
Okay.
does.
But he's going to have days at the beginning, and he's going to have that November 22nd date, right? He's going to place that there. So he's going to count the first one cardinally, the next one ordinally or inclusively, right? Because the 65 days are inclusive. They're not a cardinal count. So he's going to count from the election where Biden is elected in 2020. He's going to count 65 days inclusive to the siege of Washington, D.C., right? And he's going to then put November 22nd in there. I can't remember what he has for November 22nd, something to do with the confirmation of the something. I don't know. I can't remember what that date was. But he's going to have the 19 and the 46 in that way. But then at the end, he doesn't use days, but we do, right? That is, it's consistent. If you have dates there at the beginning, it makes no sense to say we're not going to put January 11th there, 60 on the 65th day from the midterm election. You need to put it there. And then we put 46 and 19. But the 46 is cardinal and the 19 is ordinal, or it's the 19th day, January 11th. Right? So that's how I structured that line. Okay, makes sense? And so Colin doesn't do this, but the point is that we need to do this for this to have any significance.
Well, it makes, it gives us a sense of something more tangible as opposed to starting with the days and then all of a sudden go to President's Day number.
Yeah,
I wasn't understanding that at all because
Yeah.
of it's inconsistent.
yeah. Now, see, the thing about this is that we know that this is significant. His structure is significant, way more significant if we take it as dates than if we don't. Because it ties these center dates and these other dates, November 3rd and the Siege of Washington. You know, from the Siege of Washington to that December 24th date that I have is 718 days. And if I go from November 3rd to that date, it's 781 days. Right? Both of these are symbols of July 18th. Right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And then, of course, we have the 781 days. These come from Odilio's study, where, 71 times 11 is 781, and 187 is equal to 11 times 17. So these are like mirrors.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and so Odilio's dates of this here, you can see how 187 and 781 are related to each other. And so Odilio did these types of things, plus also the 78 days being 1,872 hours. That's in Odilio's study. And well, I think it's the 780 days being 18,720 hours. It's also 111 weeks and 259,200 seconds. That's dealing with the how the Israelites divide the day, 25920 days. or parts, right, in a day.
Yes.
So there's all these different symbols that we can then derive from this structure if we just put the dates there. And then it witnesses to our April 5th, 2030 date. But right now, they're not wanting to put any dates there, right? They don't want to have this end anywhere here. And I understand that he doesn't do that, but I'm saying that he has to do that. Because then it's meaningful. Otherwise, you don't have any of this connection if you don't have those dates there. And the dates are there, right? I mean, they're not like, we're not putting them there. They're there in the structure itself. And they witness to the truthfulness of the structure. So when we then look at this line, because we're going to deal with Abdon tomorrow. But when we look at this line, what we can see is that we have this message that arrives on December 25th, 2021. And this is the message that is testing this movement at that time, right? So during this period of time, we actually, basically, I'm not participating. I'm watching a few of the videos, but I'm not really participating in the Canadian American group studies, right? So we're focusing on our studies here in this time. On December 5th, 2022, we actually join once again with them in their studies. So we made an appeal for December 25th, 2021 to work together. They refused that appeal. And on December 25th, 2022, we decide to start watching their studies again. At least, prophetically, that we're going to try participating in these studies. I haven't been at a lot of them because I've been doing other things on Sabbath. We had a friend over yesterday who we've been studying with and things like that. So, but I have gone to some of the evening studies and some of the Sabbath studies. But anyway, we're saying that December 25th, 2022, another message arrived. And this is the history that we're in right now. We're in this history where the third angel's message has arrived. And it's going to be joined by the fourth angel. Right?
That's what it's looking like.
Yeah. Now we know that prior to that, if we're going to parallel Millerite history, you're going to have a falling away after the third angel arrives. Now we know that God's leading us to the upper room. We just don't know where it is and when it is. So, but it's also about the divorcement too, right? December 25th, 2022 is about the divorcement. And of course, that's the third angel arriving in this line. It's the third angel arriving is January 11th, 2023 in the line of the judges, which is going to be Samson. Right? And Samson, we spent a lot of time on. And when we draw out the lines of Samson, you'll see it's rather complex. It's the most complex of all of the lines. It's going to take us probably a couple of months, I think, to get Samson out on a line, drawn out. Okay, so any further comments about this? I know some of you have been fairly quiet.
Well, Theodore, again, I don't have any of the notes to contribute.
Well, that's okay, but still you're.
But this is, it's even becoming more clear to me where we're heading with this.
Mhm.
I'm looking for that upper room experience myself, bro.
Yeah, well, it starts with us.
Yes, yes.
But yeah, I mean, we're all facing different trials, things that are causing us to look at ourselves. Hopefully we're facing those trials to cause us to look at ourselves. But But this is where we're at with these lines. So we now have to understand Abden as the third waymark. Because I think this is, based on what we've done, this is sort of a self-evident line. I don't see how we could do any differently than this line. Just doing a calculation here. Okay.
Theodore,
Yeah.
is there a 10th month and a 20th day in the Bible?
No. 20th day of the 10th month, not that I've seen.
All right, thank you.
Okay. I don't know of one. I mean, simple thing is you just search it, but I can't think of.
Not so simple. Like doing the first day of the first month, not so simple. There's all kinds of stuff that shows up in the search, but then you have to go through that search. You've
I'll
got
search it.
100.
No, they're usually
100.
pretty simple. I don't know.
I'm sorry. You use what?
I'll try to search it later today. I've been trying to look at all the numbers.
Well, you just, yeah, it's pretty simple to do as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you just,
Well, yeah, you just type in those things, 20th day, third month, or whatever it is, and then you go through it. But there's a lot of stuff that'll pop up with some of that information.
yeah, but yeah, you're gonna,
You have to go through it.
yeah, there's no 20th day of the 10th month. So now there's still some more here, though, of course, about the 25 years. The one thing I think about with that is Ezekiel chapter 1, because we know this symbol is about December 25th, the Sunday law, and that's the 10th day of the 7th month as a symbol. And Ezekiel 40 verse 1, it's going to be in the 25th year of the captivity, right? So this is going to be the 25th year since the Ezekiel was taken captive, as well as Jehoiachin. And so you got that 25 years there. So I think that's relevant, because you're going to have the December 25th, 2022. That's going to be, as a symbol, 25 years. We also have that 10th day of the 7th month, because 479 days is 107 times 7. So we keep having these symbols that relate to the Sunday law. And in some ways, when we think about the pandemic as being a type of the Sunday law, I mean, it's mostly really a type of the Sunday law for us, but not in the way that we expected. Right? Which actually shows us some things about the Sunday law that's coming. Because people can think they're ready for the Sunday law. Just like in this movement, we can think we're ready for this event, that we know what we need to do, however we think we had to relate to the pandemic as a type of the Sunday law. And yet we completely missed the boat. Right? That I think is something that we really have to consider, is that we believe we're rich and increased with goods, have need of nothing, but knoweth not that we're wretched, miserable, poor, blind, and naked. That is, we think we're ready for something that we're not ready for.
That has been the past experiences.
Yeah. So I don't know why we can't learn from the lessons of the past, but we seem not to be able to. You know, as I told my kids, don't make the same mistakes I did, make your own. It just seems that we make the same mistakes of our parents, right? For some reason.
We
And-
got a minute to, Theodore, I got a quote.
Yeah,
uh,
okay, what's your quote?
It's from Review and Herald, October 9th, 1894.
Okay,
Says, letters have come to me asking me if I have any special light as to the time when probation will close. And I ask that I have only this message to bear, that it is now time to work while the day lasteth. For the night cometh in which no man can work. Now, just now, it is time for us to be watching, working, and waiting. The word of the Lord reveals the fact that the end of all things is at hand, and it is testimony is much decided that it is necessary for every soul to have the truth planted in the heart so that we will control so so that it will control the life and sanctify the character. The Spirit of the Lord is working to take the truth, to take the truth of the inspired word and stamp it. Did I read that right? Thanks. The
anyway,
Spirit of the Lord, the Spirit of the Lord is working to take the truth of the inspired word and stamp it upon the soul so that the professed followers of Christ will have holy, sacred joy. I think that's what it is, that they will be able to impart to others. The opportunity now for us to work is now, just now, while the day lasteth. But that but there is no commandment for anyone to um, search the scriptures in order to ascertain if possible when probation will close. God has no such message for any mortal lips. He would have no mortal tongue declare that which he has hidden in his secret counsels.
right. And you bring this up for the reason of,
It struck me this morning because, I mean, people, I read it because it just struck me. I just wanted to read it.
yeah, this idea that we had back in 2018, that November 9th was going to be this close of probation.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is one of the reasons I opposed it. Right.
I reckon that's the reason I read it, because I was thinking about when that took place.
Yeah, because we can't know the time of the close of probation. And what people were expecting, as far as I'm concerned, was really fanaticism. The idea that they were going to now be sealed so that they couldn't sin anymore. And the idea was that, you know, if we can stop sinning before November 9th, once November 9th comes, then we're not going to sin anymore, right? I mean, it's totally a misunderstanding of righteousness by faith. And, you know, but this was really prominent in the movement. But all we could ever say is that, you know, people receive light, they can close their probation so that they can't and we could look at it as a waymark on a line as a close of probation. But we couldn't say that everybody who rejected that message has closed their probation. And especially it would not be a close of probation, which him that is righteous, let him be righteous still. Just, people receive light, and if they reject it, they do so to their own peril.
I didn't mean to hold you up, but I just thought I'd read
That's
it.
okay. It's okay. I'm not in a rush today. But,
Okay.
usually I don't like to go over, but anyway, thanks for that. Let's close with prayer. Dear Father in heaven, we thank you, Lord, for the time we had this morning. And we just pray that we can contemplate these things, that your Holy Spirit can speak to us, and that we can come to these things tomorrow with a fresh mind, and that you can correct any errors we may have. Be with us throughout this day, we pray and ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you.